Perfect. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. Okay. So as I say, I'm Team GB head coach. I started playing American football back in 2001. Something I realised last year when I took over as head coach, one or two of the players on the team were actually born around that time. So it started to make me feel a little bit older. I played for Team GB, men's team, got selected in 2013, played in 3 different European championships, 1 world championship in Miami. I was defensive captain in 2017, and when IFAF was split in 2, we ended up with a bronze medal. As a head coach, I was a domestic head coach for about 6 years. Multiple women's teams, university, adult league, finished top 4 in the country. Never won it, unfortunately, but made the finals once or twice. Top 4 a number of times as well. And then, as I say, 2019 up until present, I'm the Team GB head coach. Okay, so getting straight into it. Looking at film review, opponent's offense. So I'm just going to jump straight out of this and over to Huddle. Can everybody see that? Is that good, Devon?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so from when I'm reviewing film for an opponent's offense from defensive perspective, things I'm looking for. So, what we've got to concentrate on is the whole game film, not just one clip in isolation. However, for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to take a couple in isolation. Things that I'm looking for, sort of the first thing that jumps out at me here is QB's position. So as you can see here, QB is under center. So immediately I'm starting to think it's going to be a quick play, quick pass, maybe a shovel pass or an end around, something like that. So I'm really looking for completion within 5 yards. That would be my instinctive thinking to start with. You've got a spread formation from the offense here. So again, a quick hit to the sidelines on a 2-3 yard go. So we're just going to let this play a little bit, see what happens. A couple of other things here. So whilst the QB's taking a 2 or 3 step drop, what we're seeing here is I think it ends up in four curls. But a couple of key giveaways here while I'm looking for at the receivers. You've got heads turn before they've actually started making their cuts. So heads turn means that they're going to be cutting or expecting the ball fairly quickly. If you concentrate on this closest receiver to us, what you see is they turn and do a curl. The slot receivers started to curl here already, but it comes together with the pre-snap read from the QB under center. It's going to be a quick 5 yard completion. As you can see, it's a quick dink over the middle, 5 yards, get out of the end zone. And from my film study of Austria, who this is on offense, they do tend to move away from the end zone early on the first down. Take that quick and easy hit to give them a little bit more breathing space. So then it gives the QB the space to drop back a little bit, the receivers to get further downfield going forwards, because they do like to take a shot when they can. So moving on to the next play. Here what we've got is a different position. We've got QB in shotgun, same spread formation. So what I'm looking for, they've got that space I've just spoken about now in the backfield without the risk of the safety. So now I'm sort of expecting Austria to be looking a little bit further downfield. And one of the things that Austria like to do a lot is flood. So flooding one side of the field. Here we've got a short option, a medium option, and a deep option with a check down on the other side. So again, and this is where looking at the film as a whole, you would start to see that this flood route happens quite a lot. from various formations. But this is the tendencies of what I'm starting to look for as I'm building a strategy to play them from the defensive perspective. And then finally, what we've got here, this is the final clip that I want to show on this topic. Different formation, which is key to something I'm going to come on to shortly. So what they're running here is sort of an ISO formation where we've got an isolated receiver down here, or isolated defender, however you want to look at it, and then three bunched in the middle. Now, this again, Austria tend to run this or spread as a favoured formation, but what you'll see as the play develops is they've gone back to that flood look. So we've got receiver short, receiver medium, receiver deep. The isolated receiver is going deep. I've circled the purpose of this formation here on the defender. The flooding away from this defender on the other side. So if we jump back to pre-snap, what we can see here is if you draw a line down the field, we've got all the players on offense over this half, this nearest half to us, but the defense don't actually adjust enough to cover what Austria are about to run. So what I'm trying to show here, and again, I'll talk about this a little bit more in the future, is this defender is in no man's land here. And basically, as the play develops now, the receiver going deep over the top of that defender as she just gets lost. So I guess what I'm looking for are these tendencies. So that is play type concepts as tendencies, a flood, or formation tendencies. As I say, Austria tend to run a bunch ISO or a spread formation. Any questions at this point? Okay, bro. So from the other side of the ball, we've got 3 different clips here again.
Before you go to defense,
yeah.
So you're starting. So when you're scouting your opponent, like kind of like Joe said, do you write down each play, or just mostly looking for what plays they're calling, as far as with formations, and in what part of the field they're attacking, or all 3 combined?
A bit of everything, really. Yeah. So what formations? I'll take the statistics. I'm a very data-driven person. Work on probabilities a hell of a lot. So, how many times they run a certain formation, how many times they run a certain routes from that formation, the preferred go-to receiver. Where does the quarterback like to hold the ball a bit longer? Will they take a shot on second and short to the half, or will they just take the first down? So yeah, I'm looking at formations, concepts that they like to run, and any tendencies from the QB as well.
Is this data you're giving to your players, or are you just prepping for it?
Again, bit of both. We as a squad over 2020 obviously didn't get to practice, so we had a series of online video review sessions effectively, and what I was trying to do is get the team to do what I do when I'm prepping for a game or prepping for an opponent. So we went through a process of, this is what I do. My advice is to look for these sorts of things, and that might even be down to the detail of a certain receiver always stands with their right foot forward when they run a slant, for instance. Otherwise, they stand with the left foot forward. And it's little intricacies like that it's kind of imperative that my defense know. So yeah, on that I would definitely be sharing that sort of guidance of what to look for with the players. And then again, what we did then was look at it from a higher level and sort of say, right, so the offense have run this array of formations and this array of concepts. Draw some defenses now that will cover the majority of those. And again, as I come on to my strategies in a little bit, I'll talk about probabilities a little bit more. But for me, it's all about probability. On defense, you're always chasing the game effectively in terms of knowing what's going on. So you've got to play your probabilities. So if a team prefers to run spread and they prefer to run a flood from that, then build your defense around covering the flood from a spread formation. And you know what? Hopefully 70-80% of the time you'll get it right. And that's sort of my philosophy around planning for games, I guess.
Thank you, Coach.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you talk about probability and, you know, scouting. How often do you actually then look at matching players up? So for instance, you know, let's say Australia, they have like a big, fast, you know, wide receiver. How often would you, you know, look at the players in the squad that you have and match them up to the players that are on the field? Because obviously stats is fine, but do you ever like go man for man? And although like in a certain defensive look, how often would you, you know, pick a player out of your squad and say, do you know what, we can match you up here? And I think that, you know, using probability in your favour, how likely are you to do that to, you know, give yourself the best outcome?
I think that would be a case-by-case basis. So I'm of the opinion that every defense, specifically talking about defense now, covering an offense, every defense has a weakness, whether that be in the inherent play design or personnel selection. You know, everybody's different. Each have their own strengths. Some strengths work against certain offenses and some don't. So what I would like to say and do try to follow is that I have my defense, and I trust that they as a group of 5 players on the field can cover, can do enough in the game to get the ball back for the offense. Now, as the game goes on, and again, this is one of my key philosophies and something Joe touched on last night. He said that domestically, a lot of defenses will come out, you know, in a 2-2 or a 1-3-3-1, and they'll play in that all game. I don't do that unless I'm being successful. So if something's not working, I will adapt or try to adapt to the scenario. And if that does mean having a favoured one-on-one matchup with one of our players, then yeah, I'd absolutely put that particular player against a potential weakness or something or their strength on the opposition side. But it would be a case-by-case basis, because I do believe that if you've prepared well, and you've seen enough film to prepare well, you shouldn't be surprised by anything going into the game. Some of that preparation might be a case of, you know what, we are going to have to put X against Y here. But whatever that is, usually should be in the game plan.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, moving on to the scouting the defense. So so we're looking at Denmark's defense here, and this particular play was one of the plays that I highlighted and did a lot of work on with the ladies team over the summer, just because I think it gives a lot of information pre-snap that perhaps goes unnoticed without spending a bit of time and detail looking at it. So from an offensive perspective here, we're in the red zone, we're in 5 yards, we've got a spread offense with a tight end spot type formation. And the defense are sort of, at first glance, looking at either man or quarter coverage. So quarters coverage being 4 vertical zones up through the back of the end zone. First point I'd like to pick out here is the alignment of the defense relative to the offense. So what we've got is most of the defense are on the left-hand side of the field as we're looking at it, and we've got an isolated defender and receiver over here. So as an offensive coordinator or as a QB, I'm looking at that going, do I like the matchup here? And going back to Amy's question, if this is one of my go-to receiver on the right-hand side, one-on-one, chances are as a QB, that's where I'm taking a shot. What you'll also notice is, just going back, she starts, so this outside defender starts facing the sideline, so back to the QB, and that's key. If she stayed like that, you can release the ball as a QB and she's not going to know that the ball's in the air till it's too late. What she does next is she starts to turn inside, and to me that is I don't know whether it's a nerve sting or not quite sure of the whole play, but to me again it's an uneasiness of that defender in this position in that one-on-one isolation. Secondly, over on the left-hand side of the picture, sort of mirroring what we've just spoken about, we've got another DB, again looking like it's a one-on-one with this wide out over here, facing in, possibly giving more of a zonal look, but again looking at the whole game rather than this just one isolated play. I'm sort of tending towards it being a man marking situation. In the middle of the field, what I'm looking at here is the narrowness of the 2 offensive players versus the wider 2 defensive players. Now they've taken an outside edge of both offense. So if I was to thinking from a strategy point of view, a play planning point of view, if they're not going to be lining up like this regularly, I'm going to be sending my 2 middle receivers both one direction, which puts one of the 2 defenders at a disadvantage chasing. And if I can beat them for pace, it's going to lead to an open receiver. So again, what you can see, this isolated defender is now turned a full 180 degrees and is facing inside. We've got the rest of the players on the effectively within a yard to the right of the centre. Everybody's left of that. So my instinct as a QB, and as a coach, what I've tried to get the players on the team to do this year is sort of say, right, what plays, what concepts are going to work here? So for me, I'm looking immediately to throw to this front pylon on an out or a quick hook or something, and potentially try and isolate this outside receiver here and run another receiver over the top, almost like a smash route, because this defender is then going to be chasing. So something like that. Really poorly drawn, I apologise. As the play develops and runs, what you see is, so we've got the hook here. We've actually got a quick slant from the wide receiver over here. Now the ball's thrown a little bit late, which gives this isolated defender an opportunity to make a play. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't. But if the ball's thrown at this point to this pylon, the defender's beaten. If the ball's thrown at this point to the slant, there's no contact, but it's a completion anyway. So you know, it was a decent play in the end. But those are the sorts of things I'm looking for. You know, where are the weaknesses in the defense? Where are the tendencies? Do the outside defenders always face in at the outsides, or do they face out? Get them to flip the hips, get behind you, and hit the insides. So moving on to the next play. This is Italy versus Spain. Clip 2, hopefully. Yeah. So again, something that Joe touched on last night, and something I'm going to talk a little bit more about shortly, is adjusting your formations. So spread here. What it's done though is it's got most of the defense again bunched to one side. Looking at the tendencies, you know, this defender's facing in. She's actually quite probably a yard inside. Camera angle's not great, but maybe a yard inside this outside receiver, who is 3 yards in from the sideline. So, you know, you've got all this space down the sideline here. If she only steps straight back or inside slightly, all this space here to hit. And again, the 4 defenders, including the blitz, are sort of inside this outside receiver and the centre. So it's a very narrow field. Any crossing routes here are going to take advantage of that if they're playing man. Crossing routes against man do cause problems. And what we actually see is a short completion. No, incompletion, sorry, underneath. But with this defender facing inside and putting a foot in the ground there, the receiver does get open over the top. You know, so the sorts of questions I'm looking at is, are her eyes always inside? Can I take advantage of that? If I put a hook underneath, is she going to get drawn in and let the outside receiver go over the top? Those are the sorts of things I'm looking for. So this is 2018 World Cup, USA Panama. One of the things I picked up about the USA in this tournament anyway is they tend to play a 3 high. The middle safety tends to play really deep, and the sort of linebacker underneath tends to shoot, in this game at least, with the centre. So again, what you can see here is this number 3 at the bottom of the screen, moving pre-snap, giving the receiver a bit of respect. Is that something regular that happens? Can I hit some curls underneath to draw her down and then go over the top with a smash concept? You know, again, that's the sort of thing I'm looking at. Here you can see the centre keying in on the linebacker keying in on the centre, and the safety over the top is a good 15-20 yards deep at this point. So what we're looking for is, where are the gaps? So if they're coming out that way and she's deep here, there'll be a gap in the middle. You've got curls underneath this side. And it's just highlighting areas of the field that are open regularly over a number of different plays. So any questions before I go on to the strategies bit? I guess what I'm trying to say across the film review is looking for tendencies. You know, do the defense always do one thing in certain situations? If so, what can we do to take advantage of it? Likewise for the offense, what are the QB tendencies? What are the concept tendencies of the playbook design that they're running? And what defenses can we build to mitigate their success?
So how likely are you to, you know, you've done, let's say you do all of you know, the scouting and everything like that, how likely are you then to change the playbook according to who you're playing? So obviously, you know, you've got like the likes of USA. Let's say that you've got a base playbook. How likely that are you then to like modify and implement plays, and how long before that would you tell your players?
So our playbook's going to be different for next season, Amy, just so you know.
Thanks.
So the way I've approached it this year has been all about scouting. So I've spent a lot of time going over film review, and I will treat each opponent. You know, I'm looking at each opponent across, you know, maybe 3, 4, sometimes 5 games of footage, and that's because, you know, it's balancing time and film availability, really, relevant film availability. So whilst I'm going through that process of scouting those teams, you know, I'm drawing up concepts that can beat their offenses. Offensive concepts that can beat their defenses, defensive concepts that can, you know, hopefully stop their offenses. So I'll do that for each team across a number of games, and I'll sort of amalgamate my notes to go, right, so I've got a selection of concepts here that work for this team across a variety of games. That's a good place to start. And then I'll do that across all the potential teams that we're going to play. So, you know, at this point, maybe we've got 15 different, you could call them playbooks, I guess, or concept notes for 15 different teams. Then what I'm looking at is amalgamating those, you know, or maybe a smash concept works against 80% of the teams, right? So I'm now going to draw up some plays with smash concepts in, because I know that they'll be successful against a number of different teams. Same for, you know, floods, and on the opposite side of the ball, are we looking at a 2-2 regularly here? Are we looking at a 3-1 regularly here, or man? And sort of trying to understand, again, playing the probabilities of what's more likely to work across the board. And that will be the basis for the playbook going forwards. Now, we might end up putting some auxiliary plays on that, and doing some specific scenario work for certain teams that we're coming up against, to sort of in addition to the playbook, but that would be more closer to the time of playing them, I guess, closer to the tournament. Once we drilled the playbook, the base playbook thoroughly.
Cool, thanks.
Dean, I had to drop out of the call, so apologies if you've answered this already. This is Dale, I'm not actually Shirley.
Hi, Dale.
Hi. Just on the thought of the scouting and the preparation that you're doing, obviously film is quite limited still on some of the teams.
Yeah.
And I know you have to do a bit of this, and this can take hours and hours as well. But could you just share a little bit about what you do in terms of in-tournament scouting, the sort of live stuff when you're not able to get hold of film necessarily? I mean, some of the opponents, for example, you're going to face, you won't have seen any film of, presumably.
Yeah. So last year was a prime example of that. So I got the role in February, March time. I don't think the tournament was announced until April. So that was May, June, July, 5 months before the tournament. So very little time. We spent probably 2 months building an offensive playbook to suit the QB more than anything last year. So we didn't really do that much film study going into the tournament. Whilst we were at the tournament, though, we were very lucky of the facilities in Israel. You know, it was great facilities, and they were filming every game on pitch 1. So we were lucky to get all that footage from YouTube. from pitch one, and we also had key couple of staff members with us that were able to go and film the other pitches where necessary to suit our opponents. Now, I didn't put much emphasis into the pre-tournament film at that point because we really didn't have access to anything, any real amount of film that I was aware of. But once we were in the tournament, you know, we'd sit and write notes. I think after the first day, the film study really started, because what we were able to do was get the first day's film footage and spend the evening then reviewing the next day's opponents. And you know, the process was very similar. You know, what are the tendencies? Where would our existing playbook work well, both from an offensive and defensive perspective? And you know, we were quite successful with that. We did a hell of a lot of scouting footage from the Friday evening to the Sunday morning, because we were able to have the Saturday off, which was good. From playing, we did some training then. We prepped for a number of opponents, depending on who we were going to get through the knockout stages. But it was all around our existing playbook at the time and what we could use from that. And fortunately, from a defensive perspective, we had quite a flexible playbook that allowed us to adapt to a number of different offenses, which played a key role, especially against Austria, having faced them once already. So it was a lot of time spent in the room watching TV, basically watching the film, just trying to nail down tendencies again, nail down the tendencies from both sides of the ball, and just see what would fit from our existing playbooks.
That's a really helpful insight. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to sort of strategizing for games. So I've spoken a bit about what I do with the film, but in terms of the game planning itself against specific opponents, you know, the likes of you know, Austria were what, you know, I spent a hell of a lot of time game planning against Austria. You know, they are such a great team, have been around for a number of years and were undefeated. So a lot of work went into that, and one of the key things that we tried to do was dictate the pace of the game to an extent. You know, we wanted our offense to be on the field, not theirs, effectively. And you know, you do that by slowing down your play calling, you snapping the ball, you know, just running that clock and trying to limit the number of snaps per half. Alternatively, you know, going with a fast pace keeps defenses chasing, doesn't give defenses time to adapt as easily. You know, if you're running like a no huddle effectively, you can do that either by letting your QB call the plays on the field, or giving a set number of plays. You know, run plays 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll have a chat about where we are on the field at that point. What that does is it keeps the defense guessing, especially if you're mixing those formations up. I've spoken about the slow pace to control the clock and limiting the number of possessions. So next up, again, Joe spoke about this. I've spoken about this a little bit already. Manipulating the defense's actions. Okay, as an offense, you are in control of the game. You know where your players are going, so use that to your advantage. You know, is that in the play design, as we spoke about? You know, I keep going back to a smash concept because it's an ideal concept for this purpose. You're running that hook underneath and the corner over the top. You know, you're isolating that defender, making them make a decision, and then it's a simple logic decision for your QB. If the defender comes down, throw over the top. If the defender drops, throw underneath. and it gives your QB less to think about. You know, when they've got a blitzer running at them who's going to be sacking them within 2.5 seconds, the lower number of decisions the QB has to make, the better. So if you can sort of pre-program that decision making by building your plays around if this then that, it really helps. Personnel locations. So again, it's the location of your matchups. As Amy spoke about a little bit earlier, you know, if we got our go-to receiver lined up against their number 4 corner, chances are the ball's going that way. You know, whether that be through an audible play call, or just the base play design. And formations are absolutely key. So and I've chucked motions in here as well. Defenses are happiest when they're comfortable, and they're comfortable when they're playing what they know. So if a defense, you know, the tendencies, coming back to the tendencies again, if the defense like to run a 2-2, what does a 2-2 not work well against? If they like to run man, what does man not work well against? So, you know, move your formations around. So, for instance, man, if you're running a bunch offense, bunch formation with 4 in the middle tight, crossing routes in there really mess up man defenses. However, the reason I've got motions on here as well is, and it works, maybe a better example would be if starting in a spread and then motioning the isolate receiver over into a trips formation. Again, trips works well against a man defense, but if you line up in trips, it gives the defense time to adjust. So line up in spread, let them think they're comfortable, put that motion in, and then get them thinking on the fly. Guarantee at least the first or second time they have to do it, somebody will make a mistake because they're not used to doing it. And it's just getting the defense on the back foot as much as you can pre-snap before you've even had to worry about the blitzer. Again, you know as an offense where the ball's going to be, or where the players are going to be, sorry. So a couple of quick clips just to emphasize how this works. So again, what we've got here, this is GB Austria semi-final. I think it's the first drive of the game actually for GB. So quick comparison. So we're in spread, as you can see here. The defense are sort of lined up in a man cover over the top man. Just gonna let it play. You know, it's quite well defended. Just got beat for the pace, I think, there a little bit. And then straight after, what we're in here is we're in the ISO package. 3 tight in the middle, 1 over here. Now, they've been playing, I think we've come up the field in spread most of the way.
Can you show the last play again? It was kind of choppy.
Yeah, sorry. I'll put it on slow. So basically what I'm saying here is it's quite easy for a man pickup, even though they do get beaten. I think they're possibly ball watching a little bit, but you know, it's an easy decision as a defender there. Who am I picking up? Who's my responsibility? Moving on to this though, that all changes because we've got 3 together in a crowded area with a 4th blitz coming through. And what it also does, and this defender over here on the left, it causes that confusion. You know, the on the wrong side, the ball snapped. I mean, fortunately, she's going the way that 2 of the routes are going. But that the point is, it causes confusion. It's a drop in the end. But the other point I wanted to make, sorry, was tight, it brings people down because of the location of the field. So also think about where you are on the field. It gives all the space at the back of the end zone, causes confusion up front, and it allows the wide receiver to run over the top into this back corner. Second example here, Panama, Mexico. So we've got spread formation from Panama, almost man spread from Mexico. Sort of isolated outsides. This could be a man or it could be a 3 high. With the blitz, there's your man. And it turns out to be a man marking. But you've got the spread look, isolating the defenders. Moving on to the next one. Sorry, we're happy. They've changed the formation here. They've got a bunch formation with an offset in the backfield. And what you've got is a really, really tight, clustered formation in the middle with a lot of space to either side of the formation. And Mexico look like they're in man again. Well, I think they are in man again, as you'll see in a second. It just doesn't work against this formation. So by changing your formations against a team that aren't used to seeing these different formations, it can really give you an advantage out on the field. So as the ball snapped, immediately you've got these two here. So you've got the centre shooting underneath, and this far side defenders chasing all through this cluster in the middle. And as you can see, they collide. And what is kind of a front pylon, back pylon concept with a hook in the middle from this third receiver. It's just an easy pass and catch because of the confusion in the middle and the crossing routes. So again, thinking about that formation, different looks, what it does to a defense. And then finally, Brazil, Mexico, looking like man. Right, and we've got a crossing route here, but the defenders do really well to switch that across, and it's really well defended. Spread man concept. Looking at the next play, we're in trips now. We've got a defender facing inwards with a back to the centre. Now the play itself. Well, you see in a second, but what I've been looking at here is looking at hitting the space. You've got all this left-hand side of the field as we're looking at it. You've got the defender outside of the widest receiver here. So for me, what I'd be looking, if this becomes a standardised way that they cover trips, I'd be looking to pull a lot of people over to the left-hand side of the field, isolating this defender and trying to isolate this defender, keep her in the middle, and get people over the top behind it. What you can see here with the receiver actually ran a quick slant. But again, it's caused confusion. We've got two defenders here with one player and two open receivers. Well, one potentially open receiver here. The play's unsuccessful, but as you can see here, receiver's wide open with plenty of space to run after the catch. From a defensive perspective, you know, the key things for me, main thing is communication. As I keep saying, you know, the offense have the advantage. Communicating on defense is critical, both pre-snap, who your responsibilities are, where your responsibilities are, and post-snap, again, responsibilities if you change, and you know where there is potential for decision making post-snap, make a decision. You know, just make a quick decision. The way I coach my teams has always been make a decision, and then you've made it easier for the person next to you to make their decision. Now, after the play, we can discuss whether it was the right or the wrong decision, and try and understand why and improve for next time. But by making a decision, you get rid of that confusion, and you could potentially go ahead and make a play. As I said earlier, every defense has at least one weakness, whether that be in play design or personnel choice. That there is going to be a weakness. You can't cover every inch of the field, unfortunately. And again, at point 2, the offense have the advantage of knowing where they're going. So, even if you're given their playbook, you don't know which play they're going to select. So, understand that weakness. So I guess finally, and I'm going to put this out to the audience here, what can we do from a defensive perspective to try to level the playing field against an offense that know what they're doing? And as I said earlier, the offense are trying to manipulate the defense to do what they want them to do. So I'm going to open it up. If anybody has any ideas, wants to shout out.
I think from a player's perspective, if for instance, if you're going into Worlds and you've got, the types of players that are there, if I were to be a defensive player, I'd want to make sure that I have my eye on which players are performing well, who's been performing well, who's on form, and then to make sure that I am putting myself and holding myself accountable to that level. Because if you're not, like you said earlier with matchups, then you are going to be that weakness, whether you like it or not. And then you're going to be the side that gets picked on all the time. And then you are going to be the person that's going to be letting down the team. So I think just from a player's perspective, holding yourself accountable to make sure that you are match ready and match sharpness in comparison to the level of the tournament that you're playing at.
Yeah, absolutely. And that preparation in terms of strength and conditioning and film review is paramount to the team being successful. I absolutely agree with that. Anybody else got anything else that you think we could do in terms, more specifically in terms of play design or defensive strategy design?
We have call. You want to explain it, or you want to just read it?
You can just read it.
Okay. So we have. He says. 1 second. He says defensive strategies, quick decisions. And he says, your players drilled in it. So we'll come back to that question. He says, I'd like to tell my defense to focus deep in confusion rather we stop a deep ball TD than give the offensive yards. Flag is a quick scoring game, so I'm sure your other coaches might think other.
Okay, so if I've got this right, I guess what you're saying is prioritize stopping a touchdown over giving up five yards each play. If that's right, absolutely agree with that. I think always defend, protect the touchdown first and foremost, and give up that short yardage. It's a bend don't break mantra that I subscribe to and coach to the teams. If you can make an offense, for me at this level, at an international level, offense is expected to score. 80% of the time, offense is expected to score. So as a defense, if you can get that 1 in 5 stop and turnover, you're doing enough to give your offense equal opportunity to go out and win the game. If you get 2 turnovers or 3 turnovers in 5, then you're going over and above and you're outplaying their offense and really giving the team a positive step towards the win.
Coach?
Yep.
We have a lot of great coaches in this chat room. I'm sure we can get some more opinions. Don't be shy, coaches. We got a lot of great coaches in here. I know a lot of them. Please speak up, share a little bit with us.
We established in the past few years some code words for different defenses, so we can cover up motions and so on. So pre-snap, we don't have to huddle up to discuss our next defense strategy. Just use code words. You can shout them out loud. Nobody knows what's gonna be.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for that, Max. I think one of the areas that I've not really gone into much detail here, but I sort of have on other calls, is the red zone defense that my ladies run is a read and react defense. We don't come out in a formation until the offense come out, and our defensive call will be based on their formation. So what I've tried to do with that is optimize our chance of success against each formation that the offense could come out in. And once we see what formation they're in, we automatically go to that play. So I guess in a sense, you know, it's similar to the code words as you've just said. How often? Sorry, I've just seen another question. How often do you double blitz, and how often do you fake blitz? Nearly never to both. Double blitz is definitely something that I wouldn't envisage doing at international level, because against a half decent QB, as soon as, you know, if they're aware of the surroundings, which they should be at that level, and see that second blitz coming, they should know where the gap is, and just take the quick and easy check down. It's a 4v. It will be a 4v3 then, and there should be an open receiver somewhere you can quickly check down. Again, it relies on the receivers being aware a little bit, but you'd expect it to. I would expect it to not be successful. In terms of the fake blitz, that has its place. That definitely does have its place. Not very often, maybe once a day, based on a 3-game day, or even once a tournament. If you do it too often, the other teams will game plan for it. But throwing it in and just filling one of your known defensive weaknesses can cause a QB to sort of double think, or throw a receiver open that isn't actually open because you've faked the blitz. So I definitely do think that has a place. But if you do it too often, it becomes something you can prepare for. How often do you go with run plays? Not very often at all. I personally played corner, and something I prided myself in was being able to tackle up front near the line of scrimmage, read and react against the run play. I think any team that can tackle as a defense, if the opposition wants to run against me, I'd take that all day. So I don't think that it can be as successful as a passing game in flag.
Any other coaches? All right. So just to add a couple things in for things that for defensive strategy. I know you and Joe said offense is to basically you predict what the defense is going to do, and I try to turn that back around and make the offense think about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I think not being the same defense always, especially in a higher level.
Yeah. So that was so I'm just looking for the film. It's This one, yeah, absolutely, and I would agree with that, and that's something that we try to do at GB. So I've got 3 plays here. I just want to show quickly. This is our standard formation, regardless of where, regardless of what formation the offense is coming out in, and down to about 10 or 12 yards out from the end zone. This is our standard go-to formation. So we've got 4 flat at 5 yards, give or take. So looking at the screen right now, you'd possibly be thinking, oh, it's man, maybe, but realistically, it could be anything. So this is the first play. And it's actually, I can't remember, but it could be a 2-2 or could be a man pickup here, based off that. We jump to the next play. Again, same formation. That was definitely man. And then the next play, you'll see we've got a 3 high. So what we try to do from a defensive perspective is confuse the offense. You know, what can we do to level that playing field? And for us, it's a case of we have one look, and from that one look, we can run multiple defenses, and hopefully, it just gives the quarterback at least half a second or a second of uncertainty whilst they've got the ball and are looking downfield. You know, they can't pre-snap make decisions of where they're going to be looking first because they just don't know where the defense is going. Is that I think anything on that, Devin?
No, I just wanted to add in, so we'll get some coach. We got some more questions a little bit. You got about 15 minutes, Dean.
Okay.
What is the question? Is what is your plan defense for 2 QBs?
For me, it's completely scenario based. So is it where are you on the field, and what down is it? I think you've got 2 options. You either, well, for me, you either blitz. Let me think about this. So what you could do is potentially send down a second defender. So you're effectively blitzing both QBs, and then you've got a 3-on-3 downfield. Or you can hold your second defender and sort of sit them in a spy underneath. I think both have their advantages. What I'd be looking for is who we're playing against, which one's a better QB. I want the other QB to be throwing the ball. So if the first QB gets the ball and throws it to the drop back QB, shall we say, I'm keeping my blitzer on the main QB, the main blitzer on the main QB. They then pick that QB up in man marking. The second QB now with the ball, if I've got a spy, has to make a really good throw to a 4v3, or they run. At which point, as I said earlier, I take my chances with my defenders that they can tackle in the open field, and it's only a short game. It goes back to Max's point about protecting the touchdown. And you know, depending where you are on the field would depend on what I'd get my team to do. But they're the couple of options. If your second QB is starting in the backfield and it's you know they're a team renowned for it, then maybe you blitz both people from 7 yards to start with, so you don't have to wait for the pass to cross the line of scrimmage.
That's good, Coach. Keep going, Coach, and we'll ask the next question later.
Yep. So what's your plan defense? I think that in terms of my presentation, that's it. So I'm good for any open questions now.
Okay. 2 more questions then. Do you know do you want from your blitzer to deflag or stop the ball? I mean, you teach them to correct breakdown or jump.
Always break down. Always break down. Again, it's sort of chances of you getting your arms in the right place in time to block the ball. I think probability is you might get one block every so often, but the ball's a completed pass more often than not. And all it takes is for the QB to do a fake throw and step, and you're just giving the QB another 2 or 3 seconds to throw the ball. So always break down in front of the QB and go for the flags. Now, if you can get one arm up to try and get in the QB's face, make it a bit more difficult for him to throw, then great. But my philosophy is on defense is to play aggressive and play for turnovers. So actually, I want the QB to throw the ball. If I can put them under pressure with a quick blitz, get them throwing off the back foot because I've also disguised my defense, and that's given the QB an extra half a second to have to think about things. If they're throwing under pressure, more likely I'm going to get a pick. So my blitzer in my defense, flags, always flags.
We'll ask one more question, 2 more questions, I believe. No, one more question. Communication on the field is key for defense, especially during the play. I experienced that a lot of players are not used to communication during the play. How do you teach/learn your players to communicate during their actions?
It comes down to the practice field. Give them something to think about while you're scrimmaging or you're running a drill. Don't necessarily just give them a drill that specifically works on technique or movement. Include communication as one of the key points. So while you're running a drill, get them to communicate during the drill. Get them to shout, scream, whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as it's communicating and having a positive effect. So as you would with any other technique, if they're not doing it in the drill, stop the drill, have a chat with them, explain what they need to improve, and let them have another go at it. It's key, as you've said, and it's just about incorporating it as a key component of drills or scenarios.